race. Back to Saturday night short track, fisticuffs and racing of that. Nothing like a full moon gets the boys excited. Maybe NASCAR will use this as a clue as how we're back. That's interesting. The frame freezes up there.
Traffic. But that's just the beginning of this wild story. Eyewitness News reporter Amy Powell spoke to the driver who caught it all on camera. She joins us now live with his story. Amy.
Mark, this happened during rush hour in front of a lot of shocked drivers on a very busy street. A naked man jumped out of a tree, got hit by at least one vehicle, and survived.
This morning alone, and the crimes could be related.
Eyewitness News reporter Jaysha Patel is live in Lakewood with the latest details. Jaysha.
Yeah, Rachel and John, a very scary situation. The 7-Eleven behind me is one of 7 locations that was robbed overnight. I spoke to the 3 employees who were inside. They didn't want to go on camera, but they say they're okay after 2 of their cash registers were stolen. We do have surveillance video of that robbery. If you take a look at your screen, you can see what appears to be an orange SUV pull up. 4 suspects jump out and then run into the store.
Chaos in downtown LA after a suspect steals a police vehicle while the officer is still inside.
KTLA's Annie Rose Ramos is live at the scene with all those details. Annie Rose, good morning.
Ladies, good morning to you both. All of this happening right in the middle of the night at 12th and Figueroa. That's where it started. And Megan, as you mentioned, exactly right. It started with that suspect stealing a police car with a female officer still inside of it, eventually colliding with these 2 vans that you see behind me. You can see just the level of destruction to both of those cars.
Slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday at 4:30 on the Evil FB Network and Rumble. Check us out, subscribe, type in NEWSWIRE on Rumble. We might even irritate the YouTube folks for a spell on that. Of course, we'll join the Mighty Met 1490 AM. Night is 1490 AM. Broadcasting all over the Inland Empire at 5:30 as we usually do. And hopefully we'll have Dr. Kelly Victory on. And now we know a lot of you enjoy her. Wow. Naked men falling out of the sky. Female cop getting overrun by an attacker and causing a crash. Brawling boys at the NASCAR race on a Saturday night short track with a full moon. Who'd have thought that ever happened again? It did at North Wilkesboro. We'll get into that in a minute. Get a touch into the Tulsi Gabbard interview with Steve Bannon. That was pretty interesting, to say the least. Some of the latest polling numbers going out and much, much more. Well, they might even preview the Board of Supervisors attempting to roll more pay increases for the executives that are making $250,000 plus per year and never suffer a bit, it seems. I found this fantastic, and we led the show with it. It was interesting, and of course, right off the beginning at the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro Sunday night, actually Sunday evening, and I wish if they're going to do short track races or Sunday, do them on Sunday evening. Don't kill the Saturday night short tracks, so we'll get into that. It's a story for another day, as we say. But Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse got into it in the second lap. Ricky Stenhouse got the short end of the stick. Kyle Busch kept on racing. One good thing about Saturday night short tracks is, and Old North Wilkesboro, when you're in the infield, you're in the infield. There's really no way to get out unless they stop the race and you got to cross the track to get out. There's no tunnels, no walking ramps. You either got to have a helicopter land or you wait till the end of the race. So in the old, and that's the way it is at your Saturday night short tracks and stuff like that. So everybody's there till the end. So instead of Ricky Stenhouse, where he got crashed out in the second lap, in most cases, if he was at Talladega, Daytona, or Michigan, he'd be gone. Well, he wasn't. So he's around. As you see, he's in his shorts and T-shirt. Kyle Busch finished the race, and Ricky went up, and they had a little confrontation, as we say, as has been a tradition in that. They're talking, or Ricky is not real happy with Kyle, so he throws a punch and the brawl breaks out. And there you go. There was a lot of back and forth in that. Even Ricky Stenhouse Sr., Ricky's dad, was over there with Kyle Busch, and they're trying to go after it. And some of the crew members said, hey, there was a little pushing. No, I guess no harm, no foul, if you want to say, but brought back some great memories of 60 plus years. Parts of 7 decades I've been going to races, and this stuff happens all the time. It's just part of the deal. It's part of being humans. Racing's an emotional, adrenaline, testosterone pumped deal when you're up there. And and two drivers' lives are on the line. You could get crashed and get killed in one of these things. It doesn't happen much anymore, but it does. So drivers especially take it seriously when somebody intentionally, or they believe somebody intentionally, crashes you on that. So I thought it was interesting. Gets back to some of that. There was a full moon out, and everybody, if you've been around racing any amount of time, that's been the old superstition. When a full moon is out, lots of crashes, fights, crazy things, unusual stuff happens. So that's what went down at North Wilkesboro. Racing like it used to be and how it should be. Let's put a little bit of character and emotion back into this stuff instead of the antiseptic, robotic stuff. Doesn't work for a flippin' beans, at least in my opinion, on this stuff. How'd you like another one that was on ABC 7? Naked dude dropping out of the sky. He got hit by a car up down in Ladera Heights. You wouldn't necessarily figure that would happen there, but it did. Here's more from the ABC 7 report with Amy Powell. We'll see. Here we go.
A life-risking leap by a naked man. He lands on his bare feet on a busy Ladera Heights street and starts running. Moments later, he's hit by a car.
It was crazy. It was a wild morning. I saw this gentleman jump from the roof onto the tree, and then he jumped from the tree into the street across the in front of us.
The stunning incident happened around 9:30 Thursday morning on Slauson Avenue near Edgemar. Gerardo Garcia was on the job with a co-worker delivering medical.
So this begs the question: in Ladera Heights, pretty, a way upper middle class neighborhood down in OC, why is this dude jumping out nude and running desperately across the street? I think many could speculate what the gentleman was doing up there, that he had to bail out, looks like a second-story window coming out of that, and running panically across the street. It was definitely, as they say,
on a busy Ladera Heights street and starts running. Moments later, he's hit by a car.
It was crazy.
Now, again, everybody could speculate what the gentleman was doing and why he was bailing out and running nude across the street in Ladera Heights. They're saying he suffered a mental health crisis. Family members said, yada, yada, yada. Well, who knows? We'll find out. Oh, well, maybe we'll find out eventually what went down on that. But, I mean, if the guy was truly, I guess, shouldn't take too much solace in that if he really did have a mental health crisis going on, but it tends to lead to what speculation led to the mental health crisis. Lots of a big wave of convenience store robberies went down in LA and Orange counties. All seem to have the same modus operandi, or MO, if you want to use the acronym. Here's more from the ABC 7 report. Here we go.
4 suspects jump out and then run into the store. The suspects jump over the counter, demand the 2 cash registers there while knocking over other things and then taking off. One of the employees says he estimates at least $500 was inside each register. But along with this 7-Eleven here in Lakewood, a Circle K and Shell gas station in Anaheim, along with 7-Elevens in Anaheim, Orange, Fullerton, and Gardena were also robbed. It also appears like the same suspects are behind all of these robberies. The Lakewood Sheriff Station says 4 men in a small SUV were behind the robbery here. The Compton Sheriff Station confirms 4 men simulated a firearm and stole cash registers.
Okay. I'm not necessarily the biggest law enforcement professional in the world, but so the calls coming in, and we have all this technology and everything going on. The calls are coming in. Hey, there's this, bam, 7-Eleven's convenience stores are getting hit all in the same area. Why wouldn't the cops be doing some undercover stakeouts? This is a great thing for community service officer twos, as we know them in Riverside County, are non-sworn officers. They have about 40% of the cost of a sworn officer. But if you have a CSO2 and he's driving a black, they're authorized to drive black and whites with the siren on it and everything, or not, or any other sheriff's department, police department car, they could be staking these places out. Okay, you see, go bam, bam, after 3. Why wasn't there a concerted effort in this area to start staking out convenience stores? You know, the same people doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, I'm no law enforcement professional, but it strikes me as odd, unusual, that it could get to that point. That many of them in a row could go bam, 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 without, before somebody saying, hey, we need to start scoping this thing out. All in the same geographic area, multiple 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Well, maybe we should start watching. Maybe we should be cruising by or setting up some patrols. Not necessarily cops. You don't have to have a cop to sitting out or around the corner or within sighting distance of that. Man, they see it. They're on the radio saying, hey, here they are. And I mean, you could have officers or deputy sheriffs cruising by that too, but I mean, you could deploy, okay, boom, where's the crime strike force, I would say, to be coordinated in this sort of venue. Other one coming up, and we talked about the Fontana policewoman who was overpowered by a suspect. The deputy sheriff or the police officer, male, had to wind up shooting him, disarming him, whatever. Here we go with another one in SoCal, which seems like a police officer, deputy sheriff, was overpowered, got her cruiser stolen, and caused a humongous accidente.
At this hour, chaos in downtown LA after a suspect steals a police vehicle while the officer is still inside.
KTLA's Annie Rose Ramos is live at the scene with all those details. Annie Rose, good morning.
Ladies, good morning to you both. All of this happening right in the middle of the night at 12th and Figueroa. That's where it started. And Megan, as you mentioned, exactly right. It started with that suspect stealing a police car with a female officer still inside of it, eventually colliding with these two vans that you see behind me. You can see just the level of destruction to both of those cars. And then eventually that suspect slamming a police car into a pole half a block up the street here on Figueroa. Police sharing more details of what happened here a couple of minutes ago. Take a listen.
Approximately 3:30 this morning, an officer was assigned to a security detail at 12th and Figueroa was approached by a suspect. At some point, the suspect managed to enter the officer's vehicle. The suspect drove off with the officer's vehicle. She was still inside. At some point, the officer was ejected from her vehicle. The suspect continued northbound on Figueroa in the officer's police vehicle. A collision occurred here at 8th and Figueroa. The suspect continued northbound in the police officer's vehicle. And he had a second collision here in front of the 7th and Figueroa Plaza.
All right, we know that after that second collision, the suspect took off running down the street.
So again, my concern about this, second female, men are not going to be afraid as much of a female officer as a male officer. They figure they can overpower you. They're not, the dude goes into, and I would almost guarantee you at a 9,437% clip, if that was a dude in that cop car, a dude police officer, deputy sheriff, that guy wouldn't have made a move on stealing the car. And the poor, we don't know the condition of the officer, the female officer who got ejected from the car and then creates all this havoc going on. Again, there's got to be some standards, strength standards, or something that you have to meet. I don't care what sort of sexual parts you have. Are you physically strong enough to be a deputy sheriff or a police officer? Because things like this are going to happen. And a guy that's 250 pounds, 6'4", figures, I don't care if you got a gun. If you're 5'2" and 105 pounds, something we need to address, I believe, because, or we're going to have more situations like this happening. And these are not going to, okay, we've dodged 2 female police officers, deputy sheriffs getting killed in these situations or getting somebody else killed. And again, throw the sexist or whatever. I'm talking physical strength stats or what we're seeing. Again, I'm not a law enforcement professional, but I think we need to look at this issue a lot. Because, as they say, this looks like it's beginning to be a trend, and a trend that will not bode well for public safety. I don't think it will, too. I think it's something we really need to be concerned about on this because, again, 2 incidents like this in 2 weeks. Female officers appear to be overpowered. One, their weapon was taken away from them, I believe. And the second one, she's in the car. Dude drives off with it and she gets kicked out. This is beyond being a coincidence, let's say. And that was a follow-up, but I think it's an issue that needs to be addressed and addressed very seriously. as we're going forward with this, because all of our public safety is dependent on a police force, deputy sheriffs who can go out and handle some of the crap. Like I've said, I wouldn't want to be a cop. 98.7% of what they got to deal with is, the S. They're running up onto situations that, they don't know the people. They don't know who's telling the truth, who's lying, what's in between. They got to try and sort it out or try and keep the peace. And it has nothing to do with what sort of sexual parts, again, you have. So are you capable, not only mentally, but physically, of doing the job? And if you're not, maybe another career path is what you should be pursuing. I think the issue really, really needs to be laid on the table. Bill Asaley, our very esteemed, glad this guy got elected in 2022. Of course, we need to get some more reinforcements for him and others up there to try and get this insane state of California off the collision course it's been on. But he's got a bill up there that wants to make it law that pedophiles, anybody connected with sex crimes against children, if they're in the country illegally, they're automatically deported. No questions asked, no nothing, they're out. That bill is going to be heard, or he's going to try to force a vote on it tomorrow. This is like the Shannon Grove deal, the senator from up in Bakersfield, in Okieville. That took her 6 years to start increasing the penalties on sex traffickers, felony sex trafficking, and the abuse and all that stuff's going on. And finally had to shame him into doing that. Of course, Reggie Jones-Sawyer, no longer head of the Public Safety Committee because Newsom was taking heat. Now it's Kevin McCarty, not McCarthy. There's a Kevin McCarty who's in our assembly. He's now head of the Public Safety Committee. He and the nutcase Democrat left-wing loons up there don't even want the bill to be heard. Just like I say, it smacks of what on with Shannon Grove until it took her 6 years to get this. Here's Mr. Asaley with a short note. You. Maybe.
In the state of California, we actually protect pedophiles from deportation. That's right. Under sanctuary state policies, doesn't matter what crime you committed, even if you've raped a child, you are protected from being deported in the state of California. We're going to change that next week. Next week, I'm bringing a bill to the floor, SB 2641. On Tuesday, we're going to take a vote. Every single elected official in the state of California is going to have a say on whether they support this policy or whether they're going to support reversing it and protecting our kids again.
So let's hope he does get a vote, because they were trying to block Asaley's bill, AB 2641, to deport illegals that have been accused or been convicted of sex crimes against children. We're down to the state of California protecting, and this is what the whole sanctuary city, sanctuary state of where they framed it, and I will say very effectively, oh, it's just a bunch of those evil rich white boy Okie hillbillies. They don't want anybody, they got darker skin tone of brown than I do. We want to hate them, keep them out. All that had nothing to do with that. It's the idiotic policies of this not keeping us safe, not keeping our kids safe, of crying out loud. At least adults have a better chance of defending themselves on this stuff, where kids, they're depending on us, the adults, to protect them from child predators, sex predators. Now, we haven't been doing a great job of that with all the stuff that's going on with the 3x5 screen and that. But again, that's, we can deal with that. Down to this basic provision. I mean, we're down to the basic provision of you cannot, or you have to force. Bill O'Saley has to be almost threatened to run around naked, well, like the man bailing out of the Ladera Heights house, around the Capitol to get a vote on this bill. Of course, they don't want to vote on it because they're in a catch. O'Saley's putting them in a box, a gray box, because the reason they don't want to vote on it, because if they vote against it, all holy hell's going to break loose like it did in the Shannon Grove, increasing the penalties on felony sex traffickers, and especially of minors. We're rerunning this. They don't want to put it out there to vote. They don't want to have to say, no, we're supporting illegal aliens that commit sex crimes on kids. Man, oh man. Well, we'll see how the vote goes tomorrow, or see if it goes on. I hope he gets the vote on the floor. The way the legislature runs, until it happens. Again, don't count your chickens coming home before they roost. Of course, Joe Biden and crew are panicking all over the place because his support is dropping like a rock, a big rock. And the latest polls out were from CBS Morning News. Biden is dropping support on every demographic, any ethnicity, any age group. But most specifically, and where they're panicked, is Hispanics, and most of the polling, even some of the CBS polling, they're pretty close to a plurality, if not 50%, supporting Trump. They're at least, in most polls right now, they're supporting Trump more than Biden, and then you got Junior in there, so it makes it tougher to get to 50% when you have a popular or a big name third-party candidate, especially early. Trends are third-party candidates always do real well in this time of year. When it gets closer to the election time, their support drops precipitously. But here's the CBS report on America Decides. Here we go.
Points in Florida. Chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Costa is with us. Bob, not good news for the Biden campaign. What does it tell us about the broader race?
These poll numbers from CBS News are really intriguing. In Arizona, we're looking at the issues of the economy and inflation driving the vote there. 80%, 82% of voters in Arizona, 78%, they say those issues are top of mind. And that's what we're hearing from voters on the campaign trail. But all is not lost for President Biden. When I talk to his campaign and his allies, they look at that third issue in Arizona, the state of democracy, and they say there are many Democrats, independents, and Republicans, those John McCain-style Republicans in Arizona, who may look at President Biden and say he's a more stable.
Oh, Costin, I got to give him credit. He's trying to do it. Of the recent polls, and you look at them, they are now trusting, where before they were shading abortion in this faux pas deal of, oh, democracy and Trump's going to, he's going to declare martial law and all that. They're actually trusting Trump more on the so-called democracy issue. He didn't put that in his little report over there, but even the abortion gap is tightening. as more people get to the position of Biden and Harris and the left-wing loons of abortion at any time, even after the kid is born. Said more from the report.
Choice, even if they're feeling inflationary pain at the same time. Notable in Florida, our CBS News poll also shows the economy and inflation, 80% plus voters are putting them top of the issue. But again, stated democracy, 74% in Florida for many voters. You're looking at right now a complicated race, though, in both states because of abortion rights. Even though the economy is driving how a lot of voters are thinking about these candidates, CBS News polling shows that in both states, Arizona and Florida, 60% plus of voters would vote yes on the constitutional right for an abortion in those respective states. And that's those issues, democracy and abortion rights, you'll hear them a lot from Democrats. And you'll hear talk about the economy, too, a real battle on that front.
I always like the democracy issue because...
Again, before we get the democracy issue on the abortion issue. And what they're saying is constitutional, but not a 100% Biden position on that. Most people would probably or favor some sort of abortion laws. There's about 15-20% on each end, but the vast majority of the 60% in the middle of that have a month in mind where they're cutting it off, whether it be 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, pretty much in that range. That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about the radical policy of that, but let's hear what they got to say on this phony democracy.
Republicans say it's about democracy, too. Both sides are making the same argument, which I always find fascinating. But let's talk about the trial today. Michael Cohen back.
Notice how they're bypassing the democracy thing now that it is starting to favor Trump in a big way. It went from 20 plus points people favored Biden to now 9, 10, about 10 plus points. They're supporting Trump on this so-called election issue.
Back on the stand for the third day. How do you think he's done so far, and what are you expecting today?
He is the key witness for the prosecution, but he faces more cross-examination today from Todd Blanche, the lead attorney for former President Trump. The Trump team expects to wrap up today, so you could see this.
Of course, that was from Sunday. Cohen admitted he stole from Trump. On top of his, I made up the phone call, the one they were hanging their hat on. Everything, and even as jerry-rigged as that jury selection was, and Pickens, and putting that whole trial in one of the most liberal spots in New York City, if they come back with a guilty verdict on that sham trial, not that I'm advocating it, but I would say odds are all hell's going to break loose. Even people that don't like Trump, who loathe the sight of hearing or seeing him or hearing his name, are saying this whole thing is bogus. Here's the trial part. This is from Bill O'Saley. He posted this little vignette. See if it'll play. Here we go.
Let me read for you the exchange between Todd Blanche and Michael Cohen. So you only gave him $20,000 and you took $30,000. Blanche, you stole from the Trump organization, right? Cohen says, yes, sir. Blanche goes on later on. He says, you did steal from the Trump organization based upon the expected reimbursement, correct? And he says, yes, sir. So again, that is breaking it out because it's...
I mean, their star witness admits on the stand he stole from Trump. As I understand, he admitted he made up the supposed phone call where Trump knew all about what the payoff was for and all that and everything else. Can you say going down in flames? Holy Toledo, as they say. On that, here's more from the CBS Morning Crew on the polls. Here we go.
That shows that former President Trump is leading by 5 points in Arizona, 9 points in Florida. Chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Costa is with us. Bob, not good news for the Biden campaign. What does it tell us?
When CBS News, and I got to rerun that again, when CBS News is saying it's bad news for the Biden campaign, he's leading by 5 points in Arizona, by 9 points in Florida, leading in practically every swing state by any poll. If you take the average poll, the only one he's slightly competitive in, or possibly leading in by the averages, is Minnesota, and that's going down as we speak. Oh, Joe, when this is every major network now, the CBS, Peacock NBC, ABC, Fox, CNN. The only holdout is PMSNBC, as Rush used to say, and that one they're never going to turn. They're gonna claw right to the bitter till the death's end on this stuff. Manoshevitz. Here's another one on Face the Nation. J.D. Vance, a senator from Ohio, another good guy that got in there, talking about the economics of everything that was going on and the whole trade war. And now every Trump policy, Biden's thinking, well, maybe shut down the border. Well, maybe we need to bring the tariffs back. Maybe we need to start looking at spending. Maybe this deficit. Every Trump policy, maybe we need to drill, baby, drill. He hasn't specifically said that yet, but I bet he's thinking it. $5 a gallon gas versus $2, Trump and Biden. That and all the other stuff. That does not bode well for your reelection chances. Here's JD.
It's really what it is you're saying that we're going to penalize you for using slave labor in China and importing that stuff in the United States. What you end up doing is you end up making more stuff in America, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, and in Michigan.
That did not happen in the Trump administration, though.
Of course, the yellow-wearing pantsuit chick at Face the Nation, Margaret B. Oh, that didn't happen. No, it was fake. All the Bureau of Labor statistics from the United States government of when the Trump tariffs came in, when Trump lowered the taxes to bring capital from overseas back here, didn't work. Manufacturing did not increase. Don't believe every measurable statistic from private sector to governments to worldwide organizations that said the tariffs work. Now, as we will say, tariffs are a tax. You actually do pay more, but there's a benefit to it. I'm not a pro-tariff guy. I say you should use them judiciously, but then when they are trying to use it as a weapon of war, economic war or whatever, that's the time you have to step in. If they are dumping steel in your country or minerals or whatever, or toilet paper, in order to crush your industry, to steal your intellectual property, to break your companies so the Chinese Communist Party can make it and make all the money, and a few privileged few from our country and around the world, then that is the appropriate time to put tariffs in to stop illegal trade practices. You don't need WTO trade agreements and all this other crap. It's fantastic. I say that we have to endure the mother lode of all this stupidity going on. But it seems like we get assaulted to it every time. There's a great chart. Nominal value of that, the red line is Trump, the blue line is Biden for their first 3 years in office. You see the Trump line of that, adjusted for inflation. You see mostly the bottom line, the blue line, unadjusted for inflation. Most of Biden's presidency, you have been losing purchasing power. In the whole spot of the Trump administration, in the first 3.5 years, you gained, and look at the end part. It was skyrocketing. At the end of the Trump administration. That's why Biden, is losing support by the droves from the American people. Tulsi Gabbard, mentioned as prominently as a candidate for vice president for Donald J. Trump, who was a former congresswoman from Hawaii, former Democrat, lieutenant colonel still in the Army Reserves, was on with the aforementioned Steve Bannon, had a pretty good interview, about 20 minutes, which is pretty long for Steve, and he didn't say too much, which is very unusual for Steve. Start off with the first part of it. Here we go.
This takes us down a road of history with lessons that should have been learned by our leaders before. You look at this, NATO's decision here as they quote unquote consider sending in NATO troops as trainers into Ukraine cannot be separated from our own military, my brothers and sisters in uniform. If any of these NATO countries send in their troops and something happens to them for any reason at all, it will be their excuse to invoke Article 5 in NATO, which will require, in their view, the deployment of U.S. troops and complete and total involvement. This is to support a war that none of our own leaders, military or otherwise, can articulate. What is our actual actionable objective?
Masters and other.
Of course, our objective is to make a few oligarchs in our country and less than 10 people in Ukraine filthy wealthy. 60% of that whatever billion, hundreds of billions we've sent to Ukraine have been into the pockets of 10 people by reports of Ukraine. Zelensky being one of them. They are ultra billionaires now. Off of the sweat, off of your brow. That's what Tulsi Gabbard is talking about more. On this, here we go.
National security advisors, you heard the whole other spin. Eventually, after a couple of years, President Trump said, I've heard enough of this. But quite frankly, what you laid out in those first days in 2016 was the God's honest truth.
It was, Steve, and I had served, obviously, on 2 deployments to different war zones in the Middle East at that point. I had not yet been to Syria. I went there shortly thereafter to see for myself, but I understood the problem enough to know the threat that ISIS posed, the threat that these radical Islamist terrorists pose, and how President Obama's regime change war in Syria was strengthening terrorist groups like ISIS. And President Obama's policy, supported by Democrats and Republicans in Congress, led to the arming and equipping and strengthening in the administrative state.
So there you go. And this cuts across party lines. 10,000%, as she said. She was in Congress. She's seen this. She's a military member. We've been getting ripped off. We are still. $1 trillion military budget is ridiculous. We could provide a proper defense for us and the world as we're doing it for about $600 billion. You could trim $400 billion off the budget off the military budget and get it back to a defense budget as it's supposed to be with the stroke of a pen if they had the will. Too many grifters and grafters would probably be on the soup line instead of buying new 200-foot yachts at $200 million a crack and ordering new jets for $50-60 million and places on the French Riviera at $25 million off of your back and doing nothing but making the world a more dangerous place.
Washington, the State Department, Department of Defense, in order to walk us back from the brink of World War III and nuclear war, President Trump needs to surround himself with people of courage, people of conviction who are rooted in the Constitution and who are interested solely in serving the best interests of our country, not the permanent Washington establishment.
Implement when President Trump.
And she's 100% right on that. This time around, Trump, no more establishment yahoos anywhere in the administration. Not at cabinet positions, not lower cabinet positions, not at vice president. Zip, zada, nothing, zero. We cannot afford to be pussyfooting around or screwing around or hearing the Steve Mnuchin's or Jared Kushner's or Mike Pence's and all that. They're done.
These are. You've been in Washington much longer than I have, and you know how deeply rooted the swamp is. Bringing people who don't care about the swamp but who care about our country and our troops first is the most important thing. Similarly, for those who wear the uniform, there are careerists in the military as well who are more interested in advancing their career than they are about putting our country first. I'll tell you right now, there are colonels, senior ranking officers in every branch of the military who are being pushed out of the military and forced to retire because of DEI initiatives or because they are actual leaders who took the fight to ISIS and other Islamist terrorist groups, taking on that risk, doing the right thing, making the hard decisions. They are being pushed out while the careerists, those who took very little risk throughout their career, are rewarded and advanced.
If you have this,
100%. We got to get rid of these military advisors that come in and talk about all this stuff. No, we're not the world's police force. We are there. Our military is to be used as a defense against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The founding fathers warned against, they said it will collapse this country if you try to be the world's policeman, because we kicked the ass of England, which was trying to do that back in the 1700s. Even though we were outgunned 100-1 in personnel, in the United States, we beat them because they were trying, King George and England were trying to run the world. It's a path to destruction. You can't, it's no way. No way you can survive it.
Keep. Why should they buy this book?
For those of you who are interested in my progression from being a Democrat for almost 20 years to being an independent and to being a strong advocate, a passionate advocate for our country, for our freedom and our Constitution, I go into in each chapter great detail of what I took away from these experiences serving at the highest levels of Democrat politics in Washington, and why I am warning every American that if President Biden and Kamala Harris are allowed to stay in power, we will see the end of freedom in America and the end of democracy in this country.
Wow, hold on.
And that's why you're seeing in the polling, and people sense it. That's why even on this so-called democracy issue that the rats have tried to push, Trump is now ahead of Biden on that. Creeping up on the abortion pretty soon. another month or two, by the time of the debate on the 27th, there's going to be Biden's not going to be leading on any issue.
Trying to keep President Trump off the ballot in over 32 states, making it so that we the people don't even have the right to choose who we want to vote for in this election. The use of lawfare, the weaponization of the Department of Justice and law enforcement. I go into detail in each of these examples, providing evidence to back up what I'm saying here and what is at stake in this election. This is bigger than Democrats and Republicans. This is a message for all Americans. I would. And I would be honored to do so, Steve, because of what is at stake, to be able to serve our country and to provide that strong backbone that's rooted in experience, both over 20 years in the military, as well as over 8 years serving in Congress in Washington on the Armed Services and Foreign Affairs committees. I can bring that leadership to help us walk us back from the brink of World War III and nuclear
Back in
war.
16, when you were a Democrat, we could tell by being on Armed Services, the questions you asked, the way you were trying to hold people accountable, you actually had a much better handle on America First and what President Trump was trying to accomplish than 80% of the Republican Party that was still in this neocon mindset. And today, as you know, most of the power is still with the neocons, although the people are with us. Walk us through what happened to you, even coming up to talk to President Trump and to talk to him about Syria, to talk about, because I'll tell you, we interviewed a lot of people. Tulsi Gabbard had the best understanding geopolitically of what was happening around the world. I mean, it was head and shoulders above some of the folks we ended up selecting. But what happened?
So that's coming from Steve Bannon, one of the architects of Trump's winning 2016 campaign, and one of the most hated on the center left. They use him up at demonizing him, put lawfare on him. He's telling you, Tulsi Gabbard, Democrat, Republican, Independent, anywhere in between, had the best grasp on foreign policy in 2016 and 2017 when Trump was running and coming in and they were interviewing. That's from Steve Bannon. He's telling you that. Regardless of party, she had a better grip on foreign policy than anyone in the Senate or the House.
Backlash from Democrats, both close friends of mine, family members, total strangers, was far more extreme than anything I could have expected. And the word that most commonly was used that really blew me away was, they were angry at me for meeting with President Trump, the next commander-in-chief, because my meeting him humanized him.
That's what they're afraid of. That's why they were afraid, rightly so, that someone talking as it was and telling it what it is, and as everybody wants, we don't want partisanship and all that, and saying, hey, Trump gets it. That's from a Democrat, from what probably since California turned Hawaii, one of the most left-wing Democrat liberal states ever. And we've had to run the tapes where Tulsi said, yeah, that's why I became a Democrat and why I was maybe not so great on the economic policy at first, because that was the culture of Hawaii. That was the politics. Now that I got into it, I see the error of that kind of thinking, or where it was destructive, let's put it that way. Last clip.
America first and American citizens first. How do you break that?
By exercising our freedom. Our founders constructed this form of government and governance knowing and telling us directly that it's we the people who have the power in this country. They understood democracy is fragile and that those in power may be tempted to abuse that power, and our democratic government would become a tyrannical government, and that's exactly what we're seeing under the Biden-Harris administration. We can only save our country if we the people stand up and exercise our freedoms and make sure that our voices are heard. And yes, it starts in this election with sending Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and those in the Senate and the House who are undermining our Constitution. We've got to send them home.
I know you're restricted on what you can say because
she's 100% right. She destroyed Kamala Harris in the presidential debates of 2020. Her economic policies are now free market, pro-America, America first. She was always right on foreign policy and the geopolitical landscape and what was really going on. She was right on immigration. You cannot let illegals flood over the border. Now that again, I've said this, I've even reiterated even more each time I see clips of her or this, the best strategic pick, hands down, without a doubt, is going to be Tulsi Gabbard for Trump's VP. Not saying that he's going to do it. Trump could do all sorts of crazy, Trump can be Trump. Like I say, I wouldn't be past him to put Don Jr. on as vice president. Donald Trump twice. If nothing else, just to piss off the other side. I mean, Doug Burgum, Marco Rubio, Tim Scott, Elise Stefanik. She was another one. And she wasn't necessarily on Trump, but she came out in 2016 for Trump and has back a lot. That's who we got to have. We got Trump from VP on down, Secretary of Defense, Treasury, Federal Reserve, eliminate the Department of Education and a whole bunch of other ones. We got to have all hands on deck. We got to have people in these spots that can get the job done and turn this ship around before we make the 57 states like California. And you see how quickly they've destroyed most of California. We'll get to what they're doing in Oakland. Holy cow. And that'll be here. It'll be down to Southern California, and then it'll be across the nation like $5 a gallon gas and everything else, and inflation and no drilling and all the whole electricity prices soaring through the roof. It's a minor miracle to me that we've survived the last 3.5 years under the Biden regime. But try as we may, I think we're gonna do it. I think we're, like Tulsi said, House, Senate, your local races, state races, your local city councils, legislatures. We got a lot of work to do there. We need to get more reinforcements for guys up in the assembly like Josh Hoover, Bill Asaley, and Kate Sanchez. Yeah, I mean, they're so outgunned right now that I understand where they're coming from. They can't get things done. It'll be interesting, to say the least. It will be one of all elections are the most important. I don't know. I saw you checked in, Sean. I'm back to not hearing you again, if that's the case. So here in about 10 seconds, I'm going to fire off the music, and we're going to see if we can hook up with the Mighty Met 1490 KMET. There's Funky Salah. Guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met, 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire and the aforementioned AM band. Join your vast video audience in the evil FB network and Rumble. Check us out, subscribe, type in NEWSWIRE on Rumble. Do that on YouTube too. I think you can subscribe to that. We're irritating the YouTube folks again. See how long it takes to get kicked off for 27 times as we usually have on that. Naked man jumps out of a second-story window in a home in Ladera Ranch and gets hit by a car, tries going across traffic and gets hit. Family says he had mental problems. Okay, well, we can also be interesting, let's put it that way, how the final report, if we ever hear how it comes out, why he was bailing out of a second-story window nude and panically running across the street. Female officer in Los Angeles got her car stolen while she was in it, got ejected out of the car as it's rolling down the road. This is the second time a female officer appears to have been overpowered on that. That is not a good sign, to say the least. We went through the polling of CBS. CBS News is saying it's not looking bad. That's the last of the major Mockingbird media polls in the last 3 weeks that said Biden's in trouble. Big time. Not a little bit, big time. And again, he's losing. He's losing on the democracy faux pas issue now. But now the only thing he's losing on abortion, or he's winning on, is abortion. He's losing traction on that. By the time they get to the June 27th first debate, if the trend continues, he's going to be behind on all issues, and we know why. I think people are tired of his BS. We ran the great interview by Steve Bannon with Tulsi Gabbard, who's been mentioned as vice presidential candidate, and as Vice said, best strategic pick for Donald J. Trump for that position. Steve threw out there, possibly Secretary of State, Defense Secretary, which should be fine positions to also. I imagine Gabbard is going to be one of she's going to be considered for some sort of cabinet position, if not for vice president. And if you see her, if you look at any of her works and you look at her evolution in politics, from coming from one of the most liberal states of Hawaii, onto and including and I don't remember the last Republican that was elected from Hawaii. I think there was one way back in the day, but he was like center left on that. But her evolution in the last 20 years, from liberal Democrat to we're not so red hot on all these foreign wars and illegal immigration is illegal, to going full-blown free market on the economics. And again, she speaks very well. She's very articulate. She's up on the issues. You're not going to surprise her. She's had debate. She ran for president, destroyed Kamala Harris in 2020. It's one of the absolute strangest election seasons, but it's very rare to find someone like Gabbard who's got the whole package together. And again, like I said, best strategic pick. I think not only does she talk to the center left, to those suburban females that trended to Trump in 16, trended back to Biden, or trending back to Trump. I think she gives them cover. The one thing, the phenomena that's got them most upset, and maybe we'll get into it a little deeper. We're waiting for Kelly Victory to call in, or maybe something came up. But we're waiting for that trend, or that trend that they are seeing is black males under 50 are abandoning Joe Biden. Ain't so much yet abandoning the Democratic Party. That's why you see some congressional seats where the Democrats leading, but Trump is winning in the polls if you break it down by congressional district or state level and things like that. Maybe U.S. senator, governors, they might be going Democratic at that. That is main. Well, that's two demographics that is in, and that's in Hispanics and especially black males under 50. Polling is consistently showing them 25 to 30% supporting Trump in this election. They were like 10, 12% in 2020. They were like 6 or 7% in 2016. Trump actually picked up black male support in 2020, where the biggest demographic he lost was suburban women, suburban and college-educated women. But he actually picked up support, lost a little bit in the Hispanic support, but that's coming. That's even either a plurality soon, if the trend continues, soon to be a majority of Hispanics will be supporting Trump in the next month or two, barring some other thing happening. That is what has the Mockingbird media panicked. That's what has the Democratic Party panicked. That's what has the whole Biden regime panicked. Because it's been well known. And let's say since Johnson's election, it started with Kennedy in 60, but with Johnson's election in 64, up till, and it took a little time, but by the time Carter got elected, because we had Nixon Ford for 8 years, and then Carter, the phenomena of that. But since the late 60s and 70s, blacks had to vote Democratic by 90%, 90 to 10 for a Democrat to get elected president. And that's still in today. They're seeing that, especially with this phenomena that's happening with black males under 50 and young people under 50, 40, 30. Again, some polls are showing under 30 actually supporting Trump, and that's never happened to a Republican candidate, ever, for any reason. It's just not been in the cards. So maybe there's a big transition coming. And that's why I think with a candidate like Tulsi Gabbard, who's from that center left, that and knows, let's say, the dirt in the Democratic Party and what they've actually been, and has been in the meetings, been in the strategy sessions, the struggle sessions, go look that one up. The indoctrinations, the beating you with a stick. And I will tell you this, Democrats are far more ruthless you are in the Democratic Party, and especially if you're an elected official or you're one of the campaign people, if you're on the inside of the Democratic Party, roll outside of not doing what you're told to do, or how you're told to vote, or who you're told to support, down to what you're supposedly told to say. You step a toe out of line, and you will be crucified politically. Lock, stock, and barrel. We've got, let's say, lots of conditions. The loss of purchasing power. People may not know these statistics like this. We're adjusted for inflation, mostly under the Biden administration. You're underwater. Your dollar buys you less. They've seen what Trump and the almost mediocre rise in 4 years from the depths of one of the longest and deepest recessions we had let's say 2009 to 2015 under the Obama-Biden administration. Those numbers there, people feel it. You don't have to be a PhD economist. You don't have to be a hedge fund operator. You don't have to be a Jamie Dimon, richest, most powerful banker in the world to understand what you live every day. And that phenomenon will not quit. This is something that, oh man. Down, and this is how dangerous. Look, San Diego, one of the nicest places in the world to live. Climate, resources, livability, natural beauty, everything else was once, well, is still considered in a lot of places one of the best places in the world to live. Has been going down. They've trended Democratic harder than the Inland Empire and even Orange County. Now they want to block people from doing yoga on the beach. From all the, let's say, just weird, untoward stuff they allow to be done on the beaches. They're hassling people in San Diego from practicing, you got to have a permit to do yoga on a public beach in San Diego. Here's the ABC 10 report. Here we go.
The city of San Diego is cracking down on beach yoga. A group of instructors say park rangers shut down their classes earlier this week. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Neil Watson. ABC 10 News reporter Spencer Shorsha explains why the city's recently updated code is getting pushback from the wellness community.
It's very peaceful. They came here to unwind, do some yoga by the cliffs.
It's an incredible space. I think it is one of the most unique spots in all of San Diego.
Instead, just as they got to Sunset Cliffs, these yogis are rolling up their mats and heading home.
We've all tried to spread the word that class has been canceled.
These 4 women teach yoga at Sunset Cliffs. At least they used to.
When I came here to teach my class at 6 o'clock, there were 3 park ranger trucks all positioned on the cliffs that prevented us from starting our class.
The city of San Diego.
So, some ladies, well, looks like a few dudes too, are out there wanting to do yoga on the beach. So what? Your city government down there in San Diego and the park rangers, that's their biggest concern. Is people doing yoga on the beach? Have they seen some of the just insane stuff that's going on the beaches? They're hassling people doing yoga? Dressed like this comparatively to what you see. Not that I'm complaining a lot, but compared to what you see and people look like out on the beach, and sometimes these guys look like they're dressed to the Victorian standards of the 1700s or some darn thing. Here we go.
Is enforcing an ordinance it revised in March, the one that aimed to crack down on sidewalk vending. In it, the city restricts where fitness classes can be held, like here at the Cliffs, and requires a permit.
I keep saying I thought it was hot dog vendors, and all of a sudden it's yoga teachers too, right? And mommy groups and sign language classes in the park.
The yoga teachers say their classes are free. You can give a donation if you want, and they aren't selling anything. They add.
So, which, if they're going to have a policy on people selling food or whatever, or doing a commercial enterprise in a place that's not zoned or allowed for that or whatever, okay, that's something under the jurisdiction of our governments. People who are doing free classes for yoga on the beach or in the park, or sign language classes or whatever, what, are you going to have a permit if you want to have a birthday party for your kids, or you're going to just have an informal soccer game or something and somebody's going to complain about that? Well, what the hell is a park or a beach for? I guess, so if you put up a volleyball net or in the beach, which was very common back in the day, I don't know if they still do that. I haven't been there in a while. Maybe I should go. You got to have a permit, put up a volleyball net and play volleyball on the beach. Just have a friendly volleyball game. So people want to collect it. Go on the beach or in the park. Not a commercial enterprise. Hey, so if you're playing your guitar and somebody drops a buck or two or a quarter in that, you got to have a permit for that. You're not asking for any money, but it's, hey, if somebody appreciates the music or whatever, and they drop a few shekels in your deal of that. Why is the city, of all the things going on in San Diego with the border crisis and the homeless up and down the streets and everything else, this is their biggest concern?
The classes follow City Code 2, kept under 50 people. Still, in a statement, the city told ABC 10 News that an activity with more than 4 people requires a permit.
They're not allowing us to even have a permit out here.
The Sunset Cliffs instructors have what they think is a simple demand.
So I guess you could have a volleyball game going on the beach if it's 2 versus 2. Add a third person or a fifth person, and you need a permit. If you're going to have again, let's say your kid's graduating from the 6th grade and you're having, or let's say a family, let's say the block of moms get together and they want to have a party. Say the kids are graduating from the 6th grade or something. I don't know, whatever. Well, you can only have 4 people or you need a permit. What kind of idiocracy is this? BS.
They want to be able to get that here.
We would love to.
Yeah.
Period.
So their classes don't end right as they're supposed to start.
It's really tragic that the city would take away the opportunity to come to a class for free, to be outside in a public park and to enjoy nature. And we are perfectly willing and ready to get a permit if the city would allow it.
And Sunset Cliffs.
No, they should not have to have a permit to have a yoga class on the beach. A voluntary, hey, some chicks and dudes want to get together. You know, this young lady looks like a big threat. Now she needs a little bit of, let's say, guidance, how to deal with city governments. No, you don't acquiesce to them and say, we'll get a permit. I would encourage the yogis, this one, go up to the city council and said, what kind of blankety blank bleeps are you that are requiring us a permit to do a well-known activity that's been done on the beach, is not threatening anybody? Don't comply with stupidity. Ever. Because it just breeds. They should be walking up there. And en masse, you in San Diego, en masse should be walking up there and saying, what kind of loony bin is this city turning into when you're harassing these people? It's 100%. Hugo Chavez, 147% freaking insane. I hope first, I hope they organize, get their act together, get in there, and say, you are not going to want to face us in the next election or any time, or you're going to dread. You staff, politicians, lifeguards, or park rangers, you are going to dread every day you have to come to work if you do not rescind this insane, stupid, ridiculous policy. We're not going to stand for this. No permits, no kissing your rear end, no nothing. Fix it. As you know, I've been talking about standing up for our country, doing something. These big box stores stayed open while the little guys closed. Will our voices be heard? Does voting with our dollars work? PatriotSwitch.com gives patriots the power to walk away from the big box stores forever. Stop supporting the enemies of freedom now. That's why PatriotSwitch.com was created, for those who support America. PatriotSwitch.com. Is your car doing the hucklebuck and afraid you will be stuck? Well, head on down to Toyota of San Bernardino, Nissan of San Bernardino, Subaru of San Bernardino, and the San Bernardino Auto Mall, and catch a Camry, look ravishing in a Rogue, or be styling in a Subaru. Don't forget I-10 Toyota in Indio for those of you in the lower desert. You deserve to be the happiest human on the planet. So head on down to one of these 4 great dealerships for the car of your dreams. Spread the word. IE Newswire is now on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 p.m. on Rumble and KMET 1490 AM, 5:30 to 6 p.m. Join all the cool kids who want an eclectic look at the news without all the filters of the evil scoundrels of social media and the despicable dorks of the dominant press. Don't bumble and stumble. Subscribe to IE Newswire on Rumble and roll with the best hillbilly hoedown around. Oh, that's time for me to come on. If you need a new Nissan or new Subaru Toyota, I'll even get it right. Subaru Toyota, go to one of Cliff Cummings' great dealerships, San Bernardino Auto Mall, 10 and 215 freeways. Don't forget I-10 Toyota down in the lower desert. And of course, if you want to buy American, go to patriotswitch.com. Well, I don't know. We'll see if we get Kelly Victory back. I don't know what something must came up. See if we can get her back later in the week of that. Of course, we got Board of Supervisors. They're going to try and raise the executive staff salaries again. Agenda item 3.59. We will be down there speaking about that and maybe a few other things possibly. In these times, economic times, deficits at the state level, trillions of dollars at the federal level, of that, this is not a time to be increasing salaries of guys that are making $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. They didn't suffer any under the COVID or anything like that. Let's start setting the example at the top. We all got to make sacrifices. They're elected positions. What the hey? We usually say this time. Mandatory that you're back here in 22 and a half hours long to hear the best darn show in the whole wide world. Till then, see ya! Well, if you can hear me, Sean, I'm not hearing you again. Oh, well. It's always something.